She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. She simply showed up, calm, confident, and unnoticed at first. But the moment she walked into the CEO's cold, empty world, everything changed, and what happened next will leave you speechless. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. It was 8 a.m. sharp when the elevator doors on the top floor of Hunter and Company opened with a soft ding. The quiet hum of computers and phones suddenly faded. Everyone on the floor stiffened in their seats. Because when Alexander Hunter arrived, the entire building seemed to hold its breath. He walked out of the elevator dressed in a sharp black suit, crisp white shirt, and black tie. His dark brown skin glowed under the lights, and his eyes, cold, sharp, unreadable, scanned the hallway like a general inspecting a battlefield. No smile, no greeting, just the sound of his polished shoes tapping across the marble floor. He walked straight past his team, not even glancing at them, and entered his glass-walled office without a word. His door clicked shut, and the staff finally exhaled. "He's in a mood again," whispered Melissa, one of the marketing leads. "When is he ever not in a mood?" someone muttered back. But no one dared say it too loud, because everyone knew that Alexander Hunter, the 36-year-old CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in New York, wasn't just a perfectionist. He was impossible. In just 6 months, 6 personal assistants had quit or been fired. One left crying after just 2 days. Another walked out during a board meeting and never came back. Alexander had zero tolerance for mistakes. His coffee had to be exactly 190 degrees Fahrenheit. His papers had to be arranged in a specific order, no tabs, no staples. And if someone used the wrong tone in an email, they were gone by lunch. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just quietly said, "You're dismissed." And that was the end. That's why the desk outside his office sat empty that morning. Again. The HR director, Mrs. Collins, stood beside it, rubbing her forehead in frustration. "He's gone through everyone. I'm not even sure why we're still trying." She sighed, then looked toward the elevator as it opened again. A young woman stepped out. Simple, elegant, and calm. Her name was Zara Blake. Zara was 27, with deep brown skin that glowed under the morning light. Her long dark braids were neatly tied back into a low bun. She wore a soft cream blouse tucked into navy blue high-waisted pants and flat black shoes. No makeup, no jewelry, no perfume, just confidence in every step. She didn't walk like someone who needed a job. She walked like someone who belonged. Mrs. Collins approached her. "Zara, correct? You're here for the assistant position?" Zara smiled. "Yes, ma'am." "Are you sure about this?" Mrs. Collins asked carefully. "Mr. Hunter isn't exactly easy." "I'm not here to make friends," Zara replied gently. "I'm here to work." Mrs. Collins blinked, then nodded. She led Zara to the empty desk outside the CEO's door. "You can sit here. He's expecting you." Zara sat, organized her notepad and pen, took a deep breath, then stood again. She walked to the office door and knocked once. A cold voice came through. "Enter." Inside, the space was minimal but powerful. Glass walls, dark wood shelves, a black desk without a single speck of dust, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the skyline of Manhattan. Alexander sat behind the desk, typing on his laptop. He looked up slowly. Zara stepped in and closed the door quietly behind her. "Good morning, Mr. Hunter," she said, her tone calm but clear. "I'm Zara Blake, your new assistant." He didn't speak for a moment. He simply stared. Most assistants had walked in with shaking voices, sweating hands, fake smiles. But she stood tall, her chin lifted, eyes steady. Confident, but not arrogant. Graceful, but not soft. And for the first time in a very long time, Alexander didn't know what to say. Finally, he gestured to the chair. "Sit." She did. He opened her resume. "You've worked in 3 different cities. San Diego, Chicago, now here. Yes, she said. And I've worked with difficult personalities before. He raised an eyebrow. Are you saying I'm difficult? She smiled faintly. I'm saying I've learned not to judge anyone too quickly. His eyes stayed on her for a beat too long. Then he nodded once. Let's see how long you last. Zara leaned forward, her tone still polite. With all due respect, sir, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to assist you. I believe the right assistant doesn't need to be the loudest, just the most dependable. He didn't respond, but something shifted in the room. A crack. Small. Barely noticeable, but it was there. The rest of the day passed like a quiet test. Alexander made no effort to explain how he worked. He gave her tasks with vague instructions, timed how long she took to respond to emails, and intentionally changed his schedule twice, just to see if she'd notice. She did. By the end of the day, his coffee had been delivered exactly right. His meetings flowed without interruption, and his inbox was cleared, organized, and flagged for priority. Zara didn't ask for praise. She didn't smile for approval. She simply nodded at the end of the day and said, "See you tomorrow, sir," and walked out, leaving Alexander staring at her empty chair. He didn't say it out loud, but deep down, something told him she might actually last. And that thought made him feel something he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. The next morning, Alexander Hunter arrived at the office earlier than usual. He walked in wearing a clean navy blue suit, his eyes as focused as ever. But something about him was slightly different. Subtler. Less heavy. He didn't slam his office door like before. He didn't bark at the IT guy when the monitor flickered for half a second. Instead, he walked to his desk and sat in silence. His thoughts weren't on his morning report. They were on the woman sitting just outside. Zara Blake. She had walked in 10 minutes before him. Calm, professional, and composed. She had already arranged the day's schedule neatly on his desk, updated the digital calendar, and placed his usual coffee beside it. The steam rose perfectly. She even remembered to have 2 options ready for breakfast, a protein bar and a light fruit bowl, because he skipped dinner the night before. Alexander didn't comment, but he noticed everything. At exactly 9 a.m., Zara entered his office. "Good morning, Mr. Hunter," she said. "You have 3 meetings today. I've rescheduled your investor call to 2:15 instead of 3 o'clock because Mr. Gray is flying out early." He paused. That wasn't in the calendar when he checked yesterday. "How did you know about the flight change?" "I called his secretary last night to confirm," she replied. "I wanted to be sure you didn't lose that connection." Alexander leaned back slightly in his chair. "Most assistants just wait until things go wrong." "I don't like waiting for fires," Zara said. "I prefer preventing them." He stared at her for a moment, then gave a single nod. "Good." It was the only word he gave her all day, but it was the first word of approval anyone had heard him say in months. As the day unfolded, something strange began to happen. Alexander started looking up from his screen whenever Zara walked in. He asked questions, short, simple, but he asked, "Zara, who wrote this summary?" "I did, sir." "Accurate." "Clean." "Efficient." When she handed him lunch at noon, grilled chicken wrap with low-fat yogurt, he looked at the container, then at her. "How did you know I eat this?" She smiled faintly. "You ordered the same thing 3 times last month. I checked the company receipts." He blinked. He hadn't even remembered doing that. By mid-afternoon, a call with a tense client had pushed his mood dangerously close to snapping. His fingers drummed on the desk. His voice grew sharp. Zara, who had walked in quietly with a document to sign, stood still at the door. She waited for him to finish. When the call ended, Alexander muttered something under his breath and leaned back, eyes closed. Zara stepped forward and placed a small yellow sticky note beside his laptop. He opened his eyes slowly and read it. "Control wins more than power." He stared at the note, then slowly looked up at her. She didn't say a word. She simply nodded and turned to leave. That evening, after most staff had gone home, Zara was still typing a memo at her desk when Alexander stepped out of his office. His jacket was off, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired but thoughtful. He stood there quietly for a moment. Then, surprising even himself, he said, "Thank you." Zara turned in her chair. "For what?" she asked gently. "For today. For the note. For being calm." Zara gave a soft smile. "You're welcome, sir." He lingered, then walked back into his office. And for the rest of that evening, he didn't work. He sat at his desk and looked at the sticky note in his hand. Something about Zara's presence was different. She didn't flatter. She didn't flirt. She didn't try to win his trust. She just did the work. Quietly, honestly, with her whole heart. And that was starting to do something to his. The next morning, the team at Hunter and Company noticed something even stranger. Alexander Hunter, Mr. Ice Cold, Mr. Perfection, held the elevator for someone. When the receptionist sneezed, he actually said, "Bless you." And when Zara passed his office, he didn't call her by the buzzer. He stepped out himself and asked, "Do you have 5 minutes?" Everyone blinked. No one said it out loud. But something was clearly changing, not just in the office, but in the man himself. And everyone knew it had started the moment she walked in. Zara followed Alexander into his office, her notepad in hand, ready to take notes, like always. But something felt different today. Not in her. In him. He didn't sit behind his desk like a king on a throne. Instead, he walked to the small sitting area in the corner, 2 modern chairs and a glass coffee table, and pointed to the one across from him. "Sit," he said. His voice wasn't sharp this time. It was calm. Almost quiet. Zara sat, her pen ready. Alexander leaned forward slightly. "I'd like your opinion on something." Zara looked up, surprised. "Of course, sir." He turned his tablet toward her. "This is the investor presentation we're showing next week. I've gone over it 100 times, but something still feels off." Zara studied the slides carefully. Numbers. Graphs. Market predictions. Everything was neat and professional. But she saw it immediately. "You're telling them how smart your company is," she said gently, "but not why it matters." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "You're selling numbers, sir," she continued, "but investors want to buy into vision. They want to feel something. Right now, this presentation says, 'We are successful.' But it should say, 'We're building the future, and here's why you should be part of it.'" He blinked. No one had ever told him that. Not the board. Not his consultants. Not even his co-founders. Zara kept speaking. "Add a story. One that shows your product solving a real problem. Then let the numbers support that vision." There was a long pause. Then Alexander leaned back slowly in his chair. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Not the polite smile he gave at events. Not the fake smile for cameras. But a real, honest smile that surprised even himself. "You're very good at this," he said. Zara shrugged softly. "I just say what I see." Later that day, during a company meeting, something else unexpected happened. Alexander stood in front of his team, going over quarterly goals. His tone was calm. His words were sharp. Then, mid-sentence, he stopped and said, "I want to recognize someone." Everyone looked up. "This presentation wouldn't be what it is without Zara Blake," he said, nodding toward her. "Her insights pushed this forward." Zara's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. She'd never seen him publicly praise anyone. Applause broke out across the room. And in that moment, every employee knew something inside their CEO was shifting. That afternoon, while walking through the hallway, Zara accidentally bumped into one of the junior engineers, Marcus, who was rushing with a cup of tea. The cup spilled slightly, splashing hot liquid on Zara's forearm. "Oh no!" Marcus panicked. "I'm so sorry." Zara winced but kept calm. "It's okay. Just a little burn." Alexander stepped out of his office at the exact moment it happened. He saw her arm, saw the red skin, and immediately walked over. Without saying a word, he took off his suit jacket and gently wrapped it around her arm. "Someone get the medic," he said firmly. "No, really, I'm fine," Zara tried to protest. "You're not," he said, his eyes soft but serious. "You're bleeding." Everyone stared. It wasn't just that he helped. It was how he helped. With care. With concern. with something in his voice no one had ever heard before. Kindness. That evening, while Zara sat in the small company clinic with a light bandage on her arm, a nurse walked in and handed her a small bag of ice and a folded note. She opened it. Inside was Alexander's handwriting. I didn't grow up knowing how to say sorry, but I do know when someone deserves better. Thank you for being the calm in my storm.
H.
Zara smiled gently, then folded the note and placed it in her purse. She didn't speak to anyone about it, but her heart felt warm, because for the first time since she started this job, she didn't just feel like an assistant. She felt seen. That night, as Alexander sat in his penthouse, far above the city, he looked out at the lights of Manhattan. But he wasn't thinking about money. He wasn't thinking about meetings. He was thinking about a woman who had walked into his cold, silent world, and without shouting, without begging, without forcing, changed everything. That weekend, the company's employee review portal experienced something it had never seen before. Positive feedback about Alexander Hunter. I don't know what changed, one employee wrote, but the atmosphere is lighter. Another comment read, for the first time, our CEO actually listened when I spoke. People were beginning to smile more at their desks. Office doors stayed open longer. Meetings started with greetings, not tension. And everyone knew it wasn't a new policy. It was Zara. By Monday morning, things felt different. Not only in the building, but in Alexander himself. He stood at his window, sipping coffee, not because it was exactly 190 degrees, but because Zara had written his name on the cup in a soft, swirling script. It made him pause. He had never noticed such a small gesture before. Now, he couldn't stop noticing. That afternoon, Zara knocked once and entered his office. You have 10 minutes before your next meeting, Mr. Hunter, she said, placing a folder on his desk. Cancel it, he replied, without looking up. Zara hesitated. Sir? He looked up now, directly at her.
Sit.
I need a different kind of meeting today. A little unsure, she sat across from him. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Alexander asked a question that had never left his mouth before, not to an employee. Zara, what do people really think of me? Zara blinked, unsure how honest to be. But something about his voice told her he didn't want a safe answer. He wanted the truth. So she gave it. They think you're brilliant, she began. Disciplined. Focused. Sharp. He nodded slowly. But they also think you're alone, she added gently. Alexander's hand paused over his pen. Cold. Distant. Hard to reach, she continued. Not because you're bad, but because you don't let anyone see who you are. His eyes met hers. And who do you think I am? He asked softly. Zara held his gaze. I think you're a good man who forgot how to trust people. The room fell into a thick, thoughtful silence. No one had ever spoken to him like that. But instead of anger, he felt seen. Later that evening, Zara was about to pack up for the day when she noticed something on her desk. A small, sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Thank you for today. For telling me the truth. I'd like to return the honesty.
H.
She turned the paper over. There was an address and a time. 7:30 p.m. Nothing else. Zara almost didn't go. But her heart told her she should. So, at 7:30 on the dot, she arrived at the location. It wasn't a restaurant or an office building. It was a simple rooftop above an old brick building on the quieter side of Manhattan. And there was Alexander. No suit jacket. No tie. Just a soft white shirt, sleeves rolled up, a little unsure of himself. I hope this isn't too strange, he said as she walked up. Not at all, Zara replied, stepping closer. I was just surprised. He nodded. That's fair. They stood side by side, watching the lights of the city dance below them. After a few moments, he spoke again. I used to come here when I was younger. Before the business. Before the pressure. It reminded me of who I was. Zara turned to him. And who was that? He smiled slightly. Someone who still believed people could be good. She said nothing. He continued. I built walls, Zara. Big ones. Because I thought that's what strength was. But you, he paused, looking at her. You walked right in. Not by force. Not by charm. Just by showing up every day exactly as you are. Zara's heart thudded quietly in her chest. She didn't expect this. Not from him. Not this soon. I don't know what this is between us, he said slowly. But it's changing me. And I'm not scared of that anymore. The wind danced around them. Zara looked at him, steady. I never came here to change you, she said. But I'm glad you're starting to feel like yourself again. He stared at her, his eyes softer than they'd ever been. And for the first time, he said it out loud. Thank you, Zara, for seeing the man behind the title. The next day, something unbelievable happened at Hunter and Company. Everyone received a company-wide email. Subject: Let's be more than numbers. Message: To my incredible team. This company was built on performance and precision. But I realize now that people matter more than policies. Trust matters more than tasks. And kindness is not weakness, it's strength. Let's grow together, not just as professionals, but as people. Change begins now. Alexander Hunter. Zara read the email with her hand over her mouth. Not because it was shocking, but because it was real. The man behind the cold reputation was finally coming into the light. And all she had done was show up. The email Alexander sent changed everything. Employees who once feared walking past his office now greeted him with a smile. And for the first time in company history, Alexander didn't just walk through the halls with authority. He walked with presence. He stopped to ask how people were doing. He remembered birthdays. He didn't lower the standards, but now people wanted to meet them. Because the fear was gone. Respect had taken its place. Zara noticed the difference, too. Meetings ran smoother. People were more creative. And Alexander? He was still firm. Still smart. Still the leader. But now he was human. And his eyes followed her more often. Not just in the office, but in a quiet, respectful way. Like a man who realized that something had been missing all along, and had now found it. One Friday evening, as the building emptied, Zara stood by the window of her office, looking out at the golden lights of Manhattan. She heard the soft knock before the door opened. Alexander stepped in, holding a small envelope in one hand and something wrapped in brown paper in the other. He walked slowly toward her. I've been thinking, he began, about how much has changed in this company since you arrived. Zara turned fully to face him. You've done a lot of that yourself, Mr. Hunter. He smiled softly. That may be true, but you were the spark. He handed her the brown package. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a hardcover leather journal with her initials embossed in gold. ZB. I noticed you take notes during every meeting, he said. I thought you deserved something that matches how you carry yourself. Zara ran her fingers gently over the letters. It's beautiful. Thank you. Then he handed her the envelope. Inside was a note. You once said you weren't here to impress me. You were here to assist me. You did more than that. You changed me. Let me return the favor by asking you to dinner. Not as your boss, but as a man who sees you clearly. Zara looked up, stunned. You don't have to say yes, Alexander said quietly. But I had to ask. She smiled, her heart beating fast. I was wondering when you would. He blinked. You were? I saw it in your eyes. You were waiting to feel ready. And now you are. He laughed softly. You read me too well. That's my job, she said. No, he replied, stepping a little closer. That was your job. But this, he touched his heart gently, this is something deeper. That night, they went to a quiet rooftop restaurant. The wind was soft, the city glowing beneath them. No suits. No meetings. No pressure. Just two people who had earned each other. They talked about life. About fear. About faith. Zara shared stories from her childhood. The days her mother worked 2 jobs, how she learned to stay steady no matter what. Alexander opened up about his father's expectations, the weight of running a company so young, and how he lost himself in the process. And when the silence came, it was peaceful. Not empty. Just full of unspoken truth. Weeks passed. Zara continued to work in the company, but now, the The board had taken notice of her leadership, her strength, her gift with people. Alexander made a bold decision. He promoted her to Chief People Officer, a role that didn't even exist until she created it with her presence. She doesn't just organize my life, he told the board. She heals the heart of this company. And no one disagreed. A year later, during the company's 10th anniversary celebration, employees gathered in a grand ballroom, dressed in style, sharing laughter and stories. Alexander stood on the stage to give his speech. But halfway through, he stopped. He looked directly at Zara, who stood near the front, glowing in a soft emerald green gown. He reached out his hand. Zara Blake, come stand beside me. The room went quiet. Zara walked up slowly. He took her hand in his, gently, confidently. Then he turned back to the crowd and said, "This company taught me how to lead, but she taught me how to feel." Behind every strong leader is someone who reminds him to stay human. She didn't just survive this role, she transformed it. And she transformed me. Tears filled more than one eye in the room. And as the applause rose, Alexander leaned in and whispered, "You still think this was just a job?" Zara smiled. "I think it was a beginning." That night, on the rooftop where their real conversation first began, they returned alone. No lights, no music, just the stars. He turned to her and said, "I've built empires, Zara. But none of it matters if I don't get to build something with you." She held his hand tighter. "You already are," she whispered. And as they stood beneath the sky, no longer boss and assistant, but two hearts that had slowly, gently, bravely found each other. Alexander realized he hadn't just found the perfect assistant. He had found the woman who taught him how to live. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find it worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.